He can't hear us or see slides.
Oh, really? But you can see the slides and you can hear me, right? So
Yes.
well,
and Adam can apparently hear us too.
That's great.
I guess this is really just a method of seeing into all the chairs' home offices, if they have them.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, wait, I see. Is there a chat? Hi, Kathleen. All right, we'll give it just another minute or so to get everything settled out. I'm also going to switch. Oh, I guess he changed his mind. I'm going to switch to the PDF view of the slides, if you don't mind.
I told Roman we would give him another moment as he reboots his machine to try to make audio work.
Okay, well.
And he says, no, get started.
Oh, darn, I was going to say, good, I'll go get my cup of coffee that I didn't manage. All right, let's go ahead and get started then. Welcome to the Sacrum Working Group online, IETF108. I'm assuming you all have had a chance to participate in the numerous training sessions. For this, there's a couple things I want to remind people of. First of all, if you want to speak or show your video, you'll need to select it and we will need to allow it, except for the first button. And then also there is a chat window. This is the same as the Jabber. If you're looking at a separate Jabber client, this is the Jabber that you would see here. Other than that, it's a conferencing tool like a lot of other conferencing tools, highly tailored to the IETF way of doing business. So with that, okay, Sarah, do you really want to show video or? Because you've requested video and no audio. By the way, you have to request video and audio separately so that people can control which streams they're sending. Let me see. Yes, this is a secure automation and continuous monitoring session. Oh, and thank you, Adam, for answering in the chat. I'm going to assume, Sarah, that you don't wish to share video and continue. If that's not the case, if you could add it into the chat, that would be great. Okay, so on with business. First of all, I'd like to cover the note well. This is the IETF note well. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Chris or I or to Roman, our AD. And by participating in this meeting, by signing up, by logging in, you have agreed to abide by all of the rules that are specified in the note well. including all of the intellectual property rules, also harassment policy, code of conduct, etc. Our agenda for this morning, we're starting with the welcome, note well, and administrivia. So we're at that part of the agenda now. And as we're getting started, we don't, JabberScribe has a slightly different meaning in this context, but I would appreciate if somebody could volunteer to keep an eye out. I imagine that folks, it'll be a little bit different to watch the queue, which is in one window, and the Jabber channel, which is in a different window. So if I could have a volunteer to take notes and a volunteer to watch the Jabber stream to ensure that we don't miss anything, I would appreciate that. Volunteers? Going once? Going twice? We have 25 people online. Surely somebody can volunteer. Did I snag somebody? Excellent, Bill. Always takes great notes. If I wait long enough, he always volunteers. And then the Jabber, if a couple of the more experienced people, if you have a question and you don't wish to request audio to ask the question, you can type it in there. But if you could preface it with Mike so that somebody else can read out the question, that would be really helpful. And if a couple of the experienced working group members could please try and pay attention to that, that would be great. The rest of the agenda, we're going to do document status on a couple of documents that need to go to the IESG. And then we have the Rowley configuration checklist extension, architecture, and then we're going to talk a little bit about next steps for the working group. So, is there any agenda bashing? Nope. Excellent. So the first agenda item is document status, and Chris and I were working on this over the weekend, and I think very late last night I submitted EPCP, and I haven't had a chance to check. Did you get COSWID in?
Yeah, COSWID is also submitted with one caveat. So if the COSWID authors, I had some comments before, if you could send an IPR declaration to the list, I will amend my shepherding document to say that all the authors have submitted an IPR declaration. So not all the authors had responded to the original request for an IPR declaration. And Hank would like to say something. I'm going to add him in. Oh, nope.
Yeah, I got it.
And maybe this works.
Yep, we hear you, Hank.
Yeah, because you are now in Mickey Mouse voice with me. This is always happening when I switch to audio, which is kind of funny. So don't expect me to understand replies easily. Speak slowly, please. We still have, I think, super tiny edits found in the, I don't know, previous months. I was asking responsible parties beforehand if this is something we can still squeeze in. There was no reply. It's very, very small. It's one typo, I think an R is missing, and one or two small additions to CDDL. So how is this resolved formally? And I think I have to stop my audio to hear your answer.
So what we can do is, the next step in the process is that
there's also some nits, actually. So some of the references have updated. So, I mean, I ran nits on it last night. So there are some reference updates that need to happen in the document too. Go ahead, Karen.
I was going to say, what I discussed with the EPCP authors on Friday was that because they have a couple document nits as well, updated and obsoleted references and things like that. I suggested we go ahead and submit it and give Roman a heads up, because the first step in the process is for Roman to do his review, and he can do his review, and we can do those minor things in response to his review at the same time. Does that make sense? It is early, not as early as it is for some, but it's early.
Yeah, that does make sense. Am I audible again?
Yes, you are.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, that does make sense, but I think the write-up was last meeting initiated, so I was not sure how that fared. So we are not there yet, I assume. So
Well,
and I see. Okay. So yeah, we will just add these small nits in the review process then, and that seems fine with me. Thanks.
Roman's in the queue, so Roman apparently.
All right, hopefully this is going to work. My apologies for the delay. Yeah, I mean, if we need to make minor updates, despite the fact that I see, we're, I guess, waiting for write-up, and I see the EPCP document is already submitted to me for review. I mean, by all means, just kind of make the updates. That's fine by me.
Understood. Thanks.
Okay, and that did work, Roman. Thanks. Jess, I saw you in the queue, and then you popped back out. Did you want to say something, or did you?
About the IETF declaration. I suspect I was the person Chris was talking about. Chris, I can't get any of my normal emails these days under our new telework regime, so I will send you the right email.
So send it to the list. Roman prefers the list.
Perfect. I'll do that. Thanks. Sorry for holding things up.
No worries.
So just a quick question, Roman. I didn't realize you preferred the IPR declarations to go to the list. I always just collect them privately, but I can do them publicly if you wish.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer them on the list. It's easier, and then you can link them up in you can link them from the Shepherd's write-up.
Oh, okay. All right. Hank, did you have something? Okay. So fingers crossed, these documents are moving forward. Go ahead, Hank.
Am I audible? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. As long as the IPR questions is not a yes or no answer, but we can answer our own phrasing, I'm fine with an open answer, which I have, I think, never done before.
Sorry, I missed the last bit of that. Was I the only one who missed the last bit of that?
He wants to answer with something, and I missed the important key word.
Yeah, that's the part I missed too.
Okay.
Sorry, Hank, you're good.
So yeah, I want to have an not IPR questions. I would have prefer if I do them openly, not with the. Do you agree with my phrasing here? Yes, no. But I want like to use my own phrasing, if that is okay.
I don't know what your phrasing is. Put it to the list, and if it's not okay, I'm sure we'll get feedback to that effect.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll see what your phrasing is. So the next, so is there anything else on these two documents? Nope. The next document I have on the agenda is the Rolly configuration checklist extension. And we did not receive any slides to talk about this. And I don't see the person who I believe updated it. So do any of the authors want to speak to this? Bill, absolutely. I would please to let you send audio. Go ahead. Oh, did I hit the wrong button or did you jump out of the queue?
Could have been both of us trying to hit it.
Oh, I see. Are you hitting it? Or
no, that I didn't touch it that time. Bill, you seem to be in and out. You seem to drop.
All right, try again, Bill. Just hit it once and then take a breath. Oh.
It's giving him permission denied, he says.
Um,
Is that permission denied on your side? You want me to try it, Karen?
no, I'm hitting the right green button. But I think it's on his browser. Did you give the proper browser? Did you do your testing?
Oh, he said yes, it's on his side.
Okay. Well, this is going to go really well for your presentation at the next one.
You're capturing all this in the notes, right, Bill?
Okay. So, Adam, can you speak to the Rowley extension checklist extension document, please? Okay, Adam.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yay, it works. All right. Actually, I can't speak in any detail about it. I do know that Stephen Banghart kind of took the pen on it, and he's the one who made the update. But I haven't actually looked at it myself, so I don't know exactly the details of that update. I do know that he was interested in seeing it, obviously seeing it updated, so that we could make some progress on that. I believe that they've made some progress on Rowley. Otherwise, so yeah, that's all I can really say about it, with any authority at least.
All right.
Bill says it's looking for working group adoption at some point.
Yeah,
Because I think it's not a working group draft, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not a working group draft. So I guess that's something we could do. I mean, it dates back a couple of years. It's been put aside for quite a while. Is there anybody else that wants to speak to this document?
Do we have Gabe? Gabe is here.
Yeah, I was trying not to call him out by name, but
He's in the jabber.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. New conferencing technology. Yeah, so basically, we're looking for a way of how we can define and discover like security checklists and benchmarks. And so we started to describe specifically maybe aspects of those checklists and benchmarks. So like, for example, you might create a security configuration guide on the database server. So, you need to categorize that and who's going to, who's the author of it or who's the authoritative source. And just kind of, it describes all that so that you should be able to automatically discover benchmarks and checklists that say NIST might do, or CIS, or Red Hat, or Microsoft, or whoever might do it, whoever might be creating these checklists and benchmarks.
Okay.
First time IETF person, so hopefully this is describing what the question and how this works.
That was why I was trying not to call you to the front of the class. But okay, I think at this stage, probably what we want to do is ask for working group adoption on the mailing list. We have discussed this, so it's not a surprise. The submission is not a surprise, even though it's not a working group document. It's correct, right, Chris?
Right.
Okay. Hank, I'm going to let you in. Do you have something you want to say? Hank? Did you not intend to ask to be in the queue, or? I'm assuming you didn't mean to push the button. So we're going to kick you back out of the queue. Oh. Audio issue. Okay. All right. So that is it with the Rolly configuration extension. Checklist, configuration checklist extension. So our action will be to create a working group a working group call for participation for that. So you're back in the queue, Hank, or you're back speaking?
I might be. Can you hear me still?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I switched devices, so this is better. You're not Mickey Mouse while I'm talking. That's way better. I support adoption. That's actually it. We really need this document adopted, and I think this question should be on the list like ASAP, and it has full support, at least from me. That's it.
Thanks.
Okay. So that we will do I don't think there's any, I'm not hearing any disagreement on that, so we will go off and do that. The chatty bunch this morning. You are sending audio, Adam. You can stop if you wish. And you apparently have stopped. Okay.
I dropped him.
Okay. If you are sending anything, audio, video, or your screen, and you wish to stop, all you need to do is hit the button at the top, and it's a light blue, and then it'll go back to gray, and then you'll know you're not sending anymore. It takes a tiny bit of getting used to, but it really makes a lot of sense once you use it a little bit. All right, so next on the list is Sacm architecture. Bill, have you got your audio up, or are you, Bill? Well, let me switch slides. Let me do that first. So, speaking of hitting the button. Okay, Bill or Adam? Let's see, I'm guessing that that little red exclamation point is Bill telling me no. Yes, Ira, we already did the CoSWID. It's gone to the IESG is basically the bottom line. Adam.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
And see you.
And see me. I thought, you know, if I'm going to present, you guys might as well see my ugly mug. Cool. So this isn't actually my draft. Well, it's my draft, but it's not my presentation. So I'm just going to roll through Bill's presentation. Can you switch? Yeah, there you go. Perfect. So we did make some updates, I think like back in May or something like that. We added some management plane functions, a couple of orchestrator to component administrative interfaces, and some taxonomy updates. For the management plane function updates, we added 436. It's coordination of periodic evaluation. It's still to be worked out, and I'm kind of reading notes from Bill's slide. Still to be worked out, but similar to coordination of periodic collection. So we distinguish between collection and evaluation. This function allows for a recurring evaluation of policy based on collected posture attributes, as well as the modification of that evaluation schedule through cancellation and rescheduling. We added 437, also in management plane, coordination of change-based evaluation. Also still to be worked out, but again, similar to change-based collection. The function allows for triggering of evaluation functions based on changes to specified posture attributes that are persisted into a repository. For the administrative plane functions, we added placeholders for directed evaluation and heartbeat, fleshed out more details for component onboarding for both the orchestrator and non-orchestration roles, and added a capability advertisement handshake. So, I mean, that's really the update on the draft. When we submitted the update, I don't think we received any comments on it. So there's that. Questions, comments, anything else about the architecture draft?
Go ahead, Hank. Hank?
Drop that.
Dropped audio.
And he's back. Hello, Hank.
Yes, I have to reauthorize my audio all the time, although I tell my browser this is legit. Sorry. So there's a click org. Periodic collection of claims. There's another working group now doing this a little bit, but on a different basis. That's RATS. And so I learned a ton in the last year, and it is a little bit out of the question that I join in right now. But to the end of the year, I think I say this all over again, so that sounds like a Groundhog Day here. But I think I will be able to join in this specific field of claims collection or assertions collection on target endpoints for compliance checking again, and I can bring in all the lessons learned of the year, past year, I assume. And there are a lot of people that really, really want this happening. So inactivity does not mean disinterest. It's just mean overload. Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments on this? Okay. Well, then I think this has perfectly teed up the next presentation.
Maybe.
Maybe. So the next item on the agenda was next steps. And this is also Adam. I don't know. I'll let you start talking and tell me when you want me to switch.
Yeah, you can just flip it. Yeah, just flip it. I mean, there's no sense in waiting any. So, you know, as we just talked about the architecture draft that didn't get very much feedback, like zero feedback, and previous drafts that were published had little to no commentary as well. And we look at, you know, we've had aspirations to have an information model kind of revisited, some hackathons working, and we have done some hackathons. There's been some good work there. But generally, the formally engaged are elsewhere engaged. So we have to ask at this point, what is it we're doing here, right? I put the Bobs up there. Hopefully people know who the Bobs are. But yeah, you know, like I kind of feel like I feel kind of exhausted about it, to be honest with you guys. And I know there's a lot of people in the chat and everything, but yeah, I mean, we're working on a draft that doesn't seem to have very much backing aside from the two people who work on it. We do take, you know, to be fair, we do kind of bridge two worlds. So we're here in this venue. We're also in the SCAP 2.0 venue, and we're trying to make, you know, those two worlds, you know, meet essentially. But that's difficult, right? So, I mean, is it worth continuing here? Is it, and maybe these are hard questions to answer, maybe they're not. But yeah, is it worth continuing here? We don't have very much other activity. So, you know, let's discuss.
All right, is there, All right, so does
So
anybody have anything?
Kathleen commented in the chat that she's been overloaded like many during this whole pandemic. I know I feel that, but I mean, Karen and I have talked about this, but I'd like to hear from the group, more from the group.
I would also comment that even before COVID, like so even late last year, I mean, I don't feel like there's a ton of engagement on it.
Hi, Adam. I wanted to thank you for teeing this up for conversation. I completely agree. I mean, if we're going to talk about new things, we really need to demonstrate that we can close those new things. So thanks for teeing this up.
Yep.
And I mean, Chris mentioned that he and I have discussed this. I feel like if people aren't willing to step forward, then we're sort of sorry, I'm reading at the same time that I'm talking. I think we need to show some motivation to get this done. I think Adam and Bill have been working on this architecture draft for a while without a lot of engagement, and we as a working group said we were interested in it. And it's not a huge piece of work, but we're not even commenting on it. So Dave, we haven't actually suggested the two options that Chris and I discussed were to close the working group or to pause the working group for like a year and see what implementation work is done and what progress can be made before re-engaging with it. And so part of what we wanted to know is what the working group actually thought. I mean, in this particular scenario, I'm really just trying to read I don't have a ball in this game, I guess. So Kathleen, you asked, will anyone else review it? Well, that would be a question. We could even try a hum, but I don't know. Who's willing to review the draft? Again, we would need to also take this to the mailing list, but I mean, there's 33 people on this, and we have like 3 people speaking.
Right, and just to point out, so and I appreciate everybody who's willing to review any of these drafts, right? Like we'll keep working on it if people are interested in it. And I feel like we've been here before, but I'm not sure. So, we'll keep working on it if there are people working on it, right? Like looking at it. If people aren't really interested in it, though, that's legit, right? Like that's how this works. So, if you say you're going to review it, we really appreciate your review. So, and I understand that everybody's super busy right now, but that's kind of part of the problem too, right? Where and we're guilty of it as well, to be honest, right? Where we kind of go in waves, right? It ebbs and flows where, sometimes we have a period of time to work on this draft and then we get, overcome by other things and we have to work on those and then we come back to the draft. So it's a difficult balance to make, right? And then with all the work that's going on in other venues and we're trying to bridge that. So we're kind of working in 2 areas at once. So and that's seek largely to do the same things, right? So we're just trying to figure out where do we spend our limited time.
I'm going to answer a couple questions from the queue verbally, and then Jess, I've enabled your audio in just a second. But regarding existing drafts, our thought was we would finish the 2 that have just gone to the IESG, and the question is the Rowley document. Is that a pretty straightforward one to get through? That was part of the rationale for pausing the working group versus closing it so that we could wrap up the Rowley work. And then secondly, while folks are, I think this is also a working group that requires deadlines. And for example, Chris and I didn't schedule a couple virtual interims that we were supposed to schedule. And I think that, you know, for better or for worse, this is definitely a deadline-driven group. So Jess, did you want to go?
Yeah, I had, I don't know if this is a question for Adam or for the chairs. I was wondering about if any other work groups in IETF are relying on this document. Adam had mentioned that, you know, there's, you know, work simultaneously occurring in the Sacm community. I think there are several of us in this work group that would focus our energies there, unless there is a pressing need for IETF to have this architecture. So I don't know who wants to answer that one, but is there anyone counting on us to get this done outside of Sacrum?
I'll take the pause as somebody's expecting me to talk, I guess. So, yeah, you know, to be honest, Jess, I don't know. Like, I don't know who might be relying on this architecture draft except for us. And I know Hank just mentioned some overlap or synergy with rats. But again, I don't know if they're relying specifically on this draft existing. Your question goes back to, I think, Roman asked a question maybe one or two IETFs ago, I think, about, you know, what work is this actually enabling, this architecture draft? Like, are there other things relying on this? And I don't think we had a good answer at that point either. Yeah, so Chris, if you wanted to jump in and say what you were going to say.
Yeah, no, I was effectively, you mostly covered it, which is we don't know, and you know, I think that might provide some motivation for us. I mean, Adam, you know, we've tried to do some stuff outside of, you know, kind of formal working group meetings, and just as you said, right, it's you know, you guys get busy, we get busy, everybody, you know, it's easy to have that excuse. It would be a driver, right, for I think everybody involved if there were somebody depending on it. But I guess my impression is, since I don't feel that there's a, you know, that push, then I would say no. I mean, if I look at the chat on the list, you know, people are still interested and want something to this effect to happen. The question for me becomes, it echoes Adam's point, right? Is this the best use of our time? You know, should we be having, are these meetings the motivators for us to make progress? Is there, I mean, you know, what will drive progress? And you know, the question for me becomes somewhat, what do we need to do to make those things happen? Because it's not clear that the milestones certainly aren't it. You know, so what is it, or do we say we're not going to do it?
Well, I think, and I'll get to you, Kathleen, in just a second, but one of the things that I think we also probably should acknowledge is we were making pretty steady progress when we had physical meetings, and we had the hackathons the weekend before. And, you know, we're now in our second meeting without any of that, and that really seems to have sort of taken the wind out of the sails of getting this done. Because I think you all were progressing the architecture based in some part on what was being accomplished in the hackathons. So anyhow, go ahead, Kathleen.
I'm wondering, so you hit a really good point on who plans to use this. And then the other piece is the work of rats, I think, will eventually take the place of this, but it's going to take a long time for rats to evolve to a place where you can do posture assessment and have it fully automated and assess, right? I think it'll be a simpler mechanism to accomplish that task. So this is a gap fill, right, between this more complex method that involves lots of different interfaces to one that is hopefully with a more common interface, depending on what industry does to itself on this. So wrapping this up sooner rather than later makes sense if that's the goal, right? That this is a gap stop for, and a gap stop in these kind of terms could be a decade, right? Sometimes it takes that long to get technologies rolled out and to replace others. So I'm curious on that, in terms of who plans to use this.
Who plans to use the Sacm architecture?
Yes. Yeah. And you also see this as a gap stop between now and RATS, or maybe some people don't see that as a gap stop, and that would be important to understand. Like if they see this as separate and, for some reason with their architectures and what they see, perhaps they don't see that change happening in time, which would be good to understand.
Right. So so two things that are related, I think. So I can speak more or less for CIS, my employer, right, Center for Internet Security, and our intent is to implement these things, and we're already starting to do that to some degree. And what my hope is to do is to start influencing some of the vendor members that we have, and we've got like 87 or so different vendors at this point, at least 50 of whom are likely interested in something like this. We're also working in, kind of under the umbrella of the Open Cybersecurity Alliance, which hopes to, just invite other groups in. And actually, I think the SCAP group and OCA is actually going to start working together a little bit. Let's see how that pans out. But the second part of my statement is, so CIS, yes, we want to implement something like this kind of as a proof of concept, right? So that we can demonstrate that an ecosystem like this really can work, right? And then the second part, I think I'll talk about a little bit, but then defer to others who are on this call, is about the SCAP 2.0 work, which kind of seeks to do pretty much the same thing, right? Like, at one point, and it was kind of a joke a little bit, I think, but at one point, one of the participants in that group basically said, okay, so the SCAP 2.0 architecture can be viewed kind of like an instantiation of the SCAP architecture. And, we're not detailed enough to actually make that statement fully true, but the spirit is, in my opinion.
The Sacrum one.
I'm sorry?
You mean the Sacrum one?
No, I mean the SCAP 2.0 architecture would be viewed as an instantiation of the Sacm architecture. Did I not say that? I'm sorry if I didn't.
Right, thank you.
That's what I meant. Thanks. Sorry. More coffee or whatever. So I think people are interested in this kind of solution, in distinguishing these roles, specifying the interfaces for them, how they communicate. But now I don't know if Jess or Dave or anyone else wants to comment on the SCAP 2.0 assertions I've made.
So 50, that's a big number. So that's significant. I'm willing to put time in.
Yeah, to be clear on that, like I said, I'm hoping to influence them, right? So there's nothing promised there. It's just an idea at this point. Let's talk to them, let's see how interested they are, because you do get some pushback from vendors, right? Because they like they like being proprietary about it, and yeah.
Right, and any of the attestation work is going to take time, right? Like it's really being adopted pretty well in industry, but it's going to take a lot of time before it's a reality, all the way up the stack and the various things that it can do. So, I do think it's reasonable to work on this and have this stuff deployed in the interim.
So Adam, Kathleen, I have a question. Sorry, Roman. Which is, I always viewed kind of the stuff we're doing in Sacm as more an ability to orchestrate, kind of collect, a multitude of things, right? Not necessarily a single type of, right? So not just attestation, but some of the other things, and orchestrate on top of that. And so, the more of those things like rats that kind of do their work would be the better for, long-term implementations. But, is that not kind of how you two view it? Just personal, right? Not necessarily
Right.
asking for any kind of corporate stance or whatever, but that's always, and I think Adam, we've had that conversation. I think that's, kind of shared with you guys, but if that's not the case, I would like to hear that.
So we probably have different views, right? I would imagine, but I'll finish mine. I think in the longer term, and I think this is going to take a long time to get there, instead of some of the things that we're doing with Sacm right now, and even with Oval, where you can do configuration checks, it will become more simplified in time as we move down the path of zero trust, and we have more modularization between modules from a hardware and a software perspective, where things become more predictable. As they become more predictable, I think that the people who publish those pieces will be able to put out policies and measurements that are expected for those. And those policies and measurements would be used in remote attestation comparisons. And it will change how we do things. So I think it will simplify the management architecture for any enterprise, right? So, or data center, because they'll have this ability to compare against a known set of good values or known sets of good policies. And the vendor might even provide sets of options depending on how you want to implement, or let's say you have your systems delivered in a certain state, or those modules delivered in a certain state, right? And then you'd have the matching policies to those. And then the more technical people would have that comparison level of detail provided to them, so that the people who really like the hands-on and the larger set of data will have the transparency from RATS, but provided in a much simpler way. Now that might be 10, 15 years out, right, to get to a state like that. I hope it's sooner, because I think that will help our smaller organizations that are part of supply chains, for larger organizations and larger organizations that don't have the resources to manage to the same level. And so I do think the attestation work will replace this. Things like NIA are not well implemented because it's so difficult. Oval, the amount of customization that you need for it is just too much for lots of organizations to handle. So to me, this simplified model, tied to modularized architectures that have attestation and authentication, dynamically tied between them, is a better future direction.
Thanks.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that, to be honest. I mean,
That's fair.
Okay.
Roman, you've been waiting patiently for us.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. I was gonna, before you start, Roman, there was just a couple things I wanted to mention that Ira had put in the chat in case folks didn't notice it. One was that interim meetings are more likely to drive progress than regular IETF meetings. I think that's true, with the exception of the hackathons. He also mentions that he doesn't think RATS will wind up simple, or that it will replace the Sacm's SCAP security. And with that, sorry, Roman, go ahead.
No worries. Revisiting kind of the earlier topic, Adam, about the interplay of CIS with the confederation of kind of at least 50 kind of plus organizations that are relying on it. I think what would transform the experience and make sure that we have an architecture document people want and implement is the obvious thing. Can we get some of them to come to these meetings and help us review and provide the feedback, even if honestly it's as simple as, I looked at it, it's actually exactly what I want, like, let's get this published. We need that momentum.
Understood. No disagreement. Not much else to say on that one.
All right. So we have a couple ways forward. I think one possible option forward is to, we've had a few people mention in the chat that, they're interested and they would have reviewed it, but they've been super busy. And so we could delay the pause for one more meeting cycle. I think we have a month or so, people have specifically indicated August. And to see if we get some reviews there, schedule, I think, fortunately or unfortunately, I think Ira's right. We do need virtual interims to make progress, and every working group has its character, and this one needs virtual interims, unfortunately, or fortunately. So we could commit to reviewing it, and we could commit to a virtual interim, and then we could make a decision in the time frame of IETF109. Or we could pause the working group, wrapping up. That would also give us a cleaner way to progress the stuff that's going to the IESG, plus the Rowley document, which should be straightforward, which we should be able to get out by the end of the year, I would think. It is straightforward, right? It's not, it should be ready to go. Adam, is that right? It is, right?
Say that one more time.
The Rowley document shouldn't take more than 6 months to get out, right?
Oh, probably not. I don't really know, but
in a perfect energized working group, it should not take more than 6 months to get out. So
that's the key, right?
So we can delay the decision to December, we can pause, or we can close. I think those are our three options. Okay, so Bill also says it shouldn't take more than. And we do need to delete the outdated milestones. The last time we did a charter update, these were things that people felt really needed to be there, but we've had no contributions, and so I would suggest deleting them. And they were mentioned earlier. And that would leave our charter with the architecture document and the ones that we're currently working on. So do we have an option A, an option B, and an option C. Do we have any more discussion or thoughts on what these options should be? Jess, go ahead.
Can you describe to me what it means to pause?
Well, it's not closing it, but and I forget, maybe Roman can remind me what the actual word is, but you don't pause the working group, but you basically put it into, there's a word. What's the word, Roman?
Yeah, very practically, it's a very simple thing. We would finish the particular documents we have. They would get submitted pending kind of for publication. It would start that process. And beyond that, we wouldn't do anything in the working group for some period of time that we would agree to as the documents kind of progress. And at some point, some time would have passed and we should agree what that is. And I would come back and say, hey, I didn't see anyone saying we need to restart something. I think it's time that we close it down. And then, at that point, there would either be pushback. No, you're completely wrong. We want to do all those things. And that would demonstrate a significant amount of kind of interest. And at that point, we'd want to recharter because we have done everything we'd want to do. So I think administratively, we wouldn't want to do it. We wouldn't necessarily need to change anything kind of status-wise. We have one or two other working groups in a similar state kind of pending further adoption or direction setting because they have demonstrated that they need a little time to figure that out in the community of folks that would adopt it.
Right. I think that the challenge here was when I was first thinking about pausing, I wasn't thinking about the Rowley document. I was just thinking about what do we do with architecture. So
I'm sorry, Karen. Yeah, I was going to say, practically at this point, I think we have finished all, assuming all the documents we just talked about are done, that pretty much gets us to the end of all the planned milestones. And so if we would be talking about doing something kind of bigger, the question is, would that entail rechartering? And then kind of practically, if that's the case, it's not clear there's a big difference between closing the working group, that at some point we can just reopen the working group, versus a recharting exercise, from an administrative perspective.
Right. But the Rowley document. So there's the two documents that are currently past working group last call, but the Rowley document hasn't actually been adopted as a working group document yet. I'm tracking that. That's a fairly small focus piece of work that we have talked about. I don't know that it's adequately represented in the milestones is the problem.
So let's add some milestones, and kind of the talk was about 6 months to kind of sort that out. That gets us to the end of the calendar year, and maybe the thinking we should be doing in parallel is there anything to do after that?
Right. And if right. So that gives us two things that we're working on right now between now and the end of the year. And if we can't make progress on those, to pause all work. I see some chatting. Right, new work could be done under a new name. Well, that goes into the rechartering or chartering something new. Repeat my last statement for the notes. We have two working group items to work on between now and the end of the year. So I had originally said we had an option A, an option B, and an option C. And A was to continue for another 6 months and do Rowley and do architecture, and then in parallel talk about what the future work would be, if any. Option B would be to pause, which is like Roman has just described. And then option C is to close the working group now. I think those are our three options. And go ahead, Roman.
I would prefer that we did not close the working groups if we have documents still in flight. I would like to have a working group open as long as we have not published all the artifacts.
All right.
Because I would have a place to talk about it to handle the feedback.
All right. So
sorry if I implied otherwise.
Yeah, that's true. So we have an option A and an option B, and I think I sense, given what some of the people have said in the chat, that we can go with option A, but I would also say that Chris and I and Adam are serious to the extent that if folks don't engage with this architecture work, then it's going to get dropped and we're going to stop. So. I can, I don't know if we need to do any sort of a, oh, Stephen's here, great. Right, I think we can get it done. So it is, so do we need to do any sort of a consensus call on that, or is there anybody opposed to that way forward, that we choose option A and move forward with that path? Adam?
No objection.
Anybody else on Jabber?
Bill says no objections. Okay. Roman asked to send audio. There you go. Go ahead, Roman.
I'm like Hank, I need to authorize every time I speak. Just to make sure what's clear to me, at the end of this calendar year, I'm supposed to come back in a very kind of in a very deliberate way to say, is there actually interest to do this? Otherwise, I'm closing down. Is that right? Is that what we're committing to?
I believe so.
Closing or pausing, yeah.
Okay.
I think they were still interested in the pause option, but closing,
Okay. We'll tease something up at the end of the year.
yeah, I think we need to have a serious, honest discussion at the end of the year because.
Got it. Yeah. So let's make it one thing that would, again, help me. It seems minor, but I think it's clear very helpful for signaling. Let's clean up the milestones. Let's make it crystal clear. This is the only things we have left for the working group. And then when we get to the end of the year, we'll say, we are done everything we said we would do, so we can declare success.
Right. And Ira makes a comment in the chat that's true. If we were going to pause the working group or we were going to pause and close the working group, then we do need to discuss this with the mailing list. But nothing. Oh yeah, the mailing list doesn't go away, but the folks that aren't here today that could be on the mailing list might have a response. But I think most of our active participants are actually here. I mean, we said this when we rechartered. We had a long, serious conversation about how productive we were, and when we rechartered, and we were like, okay, we're serious. This is the stuff we really think is going to go. We need to do. We narrowed the scope to what we currently have, and now we're not making a lot of progress on that, and it's not fair to people that when we tell them that we want to do the work, and then we don't comment when they do the work. They do the work, they put it out there, and then it's like crickets. It's like, you guys said you wanted this, and now you're not responding. So,
Hey,
go ahead.
Sorry. I don't know if I want to say it or not, but it seems like we don't really even have that much engagement on continuing engagement. And is it worthwhile to have maybe a hum or something instead of just asking if there's any objections? I don't know. Like I feel like, I just kind of feel like right now we're kind of at a point where, like, I don't feel super jazzed going forward out of it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
so let me think how to word the hum. First of all, does everybody see the hum tool to the left of your chat tool? Okay. Excellent. So the question then is, once I hit the start button, you'll have 35 seconds to choose your hum. Should the architecture work be, how should I?
I think we want to say something, are you willing to engage? Or do you think it should?
Oh, yeah.
Right, I want to do a hum that really says, are you going to really do it?
Are you willing to engage with the architecture work in the next 6 months?
Adam, is that reasonable for the hum you're?
Well, I'm sorry,
Sure,
I already hit
yeah,
the hum
I mean,
button.
well, too late.
Oh.
Sorry. So everybody should be, you have like a little over 15 seconds to hit your hum button. Yes, I am going to do one for yes and one for no. So this is, should the architecture work be continued in the next 6 months?
Can came back straight in the middle.
Right in the middle.
All right, so should we?
So Bill, if you can make a note that it's piano.
It's piano. So the second question is, should we pause the architecture work? Only the IETF would build a tool for humming, just let me say.
See, it shows you when folks are highly motivated what we can get done. We can build a hum tool.
It's all right.
All right, piano, it's even softer than piano. So there is a
Slight bias.
there is a small consensus in the direction of continuing the work for 6 months. So then the other thing I would like to do is in the chat, I want folks that are committing to review this document in August to please indicate that in the chat. So who are our volunteers that will be definitely reviewing this in August?
We had Kathleen.
Kathleen, and remind her.
She already said she would in the chat, right?
Yeah, and she just did again. I'm waiting for Ira and Hank. Oh, I can assign them. I didn't know I could assign reviews in Data Tracker. Okay, Ira will do it in August. Hank is 76.5% that he will do it in August.
76.5. That's brilliant.
Chris, are you gonna be able to review it in August?
Yeah, I just didn't think I counted actually.
Oh, you do actually in this case. I'll be the admin side and you can.
Fair enough. Then yes.
Okay. All right, so we have Chris and Kathleen, Ira, and 3/4 of Hank. Okay. Oh, so is there any chance, Adam, that you can get any of the possible implementers to take a look at it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll reach out to anybody who will listen, right? So yeah. Yeah.
Dave, to your comment about assigning reviewers, you can assign it to like get an early review from like Internet Area or Ops Directorate or something to that effect. Not.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't. That was a surprise to me. So, all right. Yeah. So Roman says that all they need to really do is to endorse it. They don't need to do a technical review of it, but just say that this is something that makes sense to them and that they're interested in using. Okay. So that then the other side of that then is we do seem to make more progress when we have virtual interims. How are we doing on time? Okay, we've still got some time. So I'd like to talk about some rough timeframes for a virtual interim. I'm thinking middle of September. That'll give all of those August reviews a chance to get done, and any potential update to both Rowley and the architecture to be done. Any weeks that are particularly bad? Can you tell by, since calendars are a complete mess at the moment? I'm not asking for it for a, go ahead, Roman.
Do we want to set some kind of timeline for you to do a call for adoption for the Rowley draft?
Actually, I thought we committed at the beginning that we were going to do a call for adoption now. So like Chris and I will get that out by the end of the week.
Perfect.
Which also begs the point that there has been an updated draft and people can comment on that. So when the authors resubmit as a working group document, they can incorporate whatever comments they've received. And I don't believe there've been any comments on that on the mailing list either. So that would be helpful. So I'm not asking for specific. Yeah, so mid-September, are there any weeks that are bad or days that are bad that we can go ahead and take out of the mix?
I do not see anything in my calendar.
All right, so we will target maybe the week of the 14th or maybe the week of the 21st, and we will get an interim scheduled in that time frame. And that should give folks plenty of time to review. All right. Mostly once a month. So maybe the 7th of September. So we do seem to make more progress when we have a steady drumbeat. And I think that Chris and I have not been very good at scheduling those this time. So, okay, September 20th. No travel plan. That's true. Traveling from here to my kitchen for a cup of tea after this meeting. Okay, so we have our marching orders. Is there anything else, any other business for the working group? All right, I think we're looking at maybe the week of the 7th or the 14th, and we'll try and do a doodle poll. Or schedule something the week of the 7th or the 14th. All right. Anything else? Chris, anything else?
No, I just like Kathleen's comment of she has no travel planned.
I like that one too.
Yes. So, well, we have, I guess with that, we are done. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We would really appreciate any reviews. It's the last chance. We've said this before, but we're serious this time. This is the last chance.
All good. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good IETF week. Adios.
Yeah.
You as well. See you guys. Thank you.
Well, I think we're done.
Seems that way.
I guess we don't actually have an end the meeting button, do we?
No, I guess you just walk out of the room.
Just leave. All right. I'll be in touch. Have a good day.
Yes. You too. Talk to you later.
Bye.